Good morning and welcome to the Capital Gang. I am Oskar Ssemweya Musoke, and as Moses of a morning show would say, with a bevy of topics for discussion this morning. OO is back in his Ofwono, and Honorable Ssemujju, I don't know whether you welcomed him properly with the Ofwono.
So Opondo is like a refugee. So people keep donating one Ofwono from, I think if you have one, you can donate.
I don't need the validation from anyone to do what I do. As long as I'm genuine, I do it for myself, yeah. Thank you, Oskar, and good morning, and the country. I first do for myself and then the country, because if I don't do for myself, how can I even pretend? Yeah.
So this, what's the statement with this green Ofwono?
Green. I'm just back. I'm at work.
Yeah.
I'm heading to Capeles after this show. So I don't need to stop on the way to change again.
Okay, you're most welcome to Gang. No.
Capeles is Capele Beyond.
Ah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, nice. Most welcome, Honorable Ssemujju, to Gang.
Thank you, Oskar.
Most welcome, our Gen Z, Jacquline, Alinda of Jada Coffee.
Thank you, Oskar.
Good to have you back.
Last night I discovered there's actually another Gen.
Yeah.
Below Gen Z. Is our Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
the ones that I think below 16.
Yeah.
8 years, the children who can speak.
They're what? Gen?
Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
You get this 7-year-old, 8-year-old. They are so articulate, and when they speak, you think that they are paying taxes directly. They are so passionate about governance issues.
Well, this is a good time to get this out of the way. Nkozi University, Uganda Matters University Nkozi, invites applicants for both undergraduate and postgraduate programs for the academic year 2024-2025. For postgraduate programs, one must have attained a bachelor's degree from a recognized university. For undergraduate programs, we welcome applicants with a minimum of 2 principal passes. We offer unique programs at our various campuses: Nkozi, Rubaga, Fort Portal, Masaka, Mbale, and Ngeta. So here we are. Jacqueline, Alinda, we begin with you.
Yeah.
You've been
Alinda.
I was trying to do a Gen Z accent. So, Alinda, Jacqueline Alinda of Jada Coffee.
Yes, please.
When I invited you, I put to you that you're the Gen Z who was protesting about coffee and everything. And even that one, Gen Z in Uganda, has not succeeded. Then you have Gen Z, Facebook is still closed in Uganda. So are you looking over at Kenya and thinking these guys can protest and get things done?
Well, so far I think they've got things done, didn't they?
The finance bill was cancelled.
They have achieved what they wanted. And I think they've made a statement that, unfortunately, there's no Enemunyankore here. But I'll use that one of squeezing the nose. Now, in Angola, they say that so a lizard in a kitchen, each time it sees fire, thinks, no, this is a normal thing. Until the whole house is on fire. That's when it realizes, oh, kumbe, it's not the usual fire. So I think the Gen Z have been speaking for so long. They use social media. They use, they say Mbozizamara. That's how they define it. In bars, they are discussing. And the likes of Ibra, they think, no, they can't make a statement. So what Kenyans did is to come out and say, if this is the language you understand, then we are going to speak your language. Because back then, I think the Gen Z did not know violence. Because you're the people that went to the bush. We did not. We did not go to the bush. We were born in hospitals. You were born in banana shambas, and so your life was hard. To make a statement, you must have violence somewhere. So for us, we kept on seeking. We could speak, and it didn't work. So you can see Kenyans. They said, "Oh, so you mean we should go back to the bush so that you understand your language?" I think that's what Kenyans did. Yeah. So.
And now that the finance bill has been abandoned, do you think the protesting will stop? Because they don't seem to be stopping at all.
Well, I think there is something you must understand. I have a bachelor's in social work, and even when someone comes to you and says, "I have this problem," sometimes you must understand how to solve that problem. Or you might think you're solving a problem and you create another problem. So by the government of Kenya or the president coming out and saying, "Okay, fine, I grant you what you want," it means you're saying each time we want something to be done, that's the way it should be communicated. So you can see now they're asking, "Step down."
Yes.
So will he give in? No. So if he doesn't give in, it means we should press more. We should, because in the first case, the question is, why didn't he have a dialogue with them? Because it's not that they came on streets, and it's the same with our government, which they should understand.
They have refused the dialogue. He kept saying,
they refused the dialogue. Even when he came out to speak, I thought he would, do the PR stuff and promise us like our president. When our president comes and starts in cash crops, people tend to think that he's not communicating, but he has. He calms the situation down. Starts from 1986. By the time he's in 2000, you're pissed. You're waiting for him to, but at least he has not said no.
That P word is not good for the morning.
No, sorry.
You are annoyed.
Sorry. He's annoyed. So what I'm trying to say is that our president at least knows how to communicate to us without saying no directly. So what I saw in Kenya is the president coming out and saying, "No, we are not going to do that. This is unacceptable." You cannot tell that to the angry mob. But here is my takeaway, Oskar. And now back to Uganda, is that back then, when they came from the bush, one thing I think most African leaders, they wanted educated population. So now they get an educated population. First, we had good schools, the mills, the what. They were good schools. Then all of a sudden we have, I can't say poor schools or bad schools or whatever. So now we have like 3 classes. We have those ones that are educated well in good schools and they're exposed, and their parents can afford 20,000 a year, and even after education they can afford to get them jobs. So those are the educated ones. Now we have the school dropouts. Yeah, you go to school, you sell everything, your mother sells everything. Before you even reach university, you're out, you cannot afford. So what do? You start selling something, or you start a shop or something. Now, we also have those ones that have failed to go to school. So you can imagine you have 3 generations. Each time universities release students, they have no jobs. And then we have a government that is saying it is creating jobs with factories. But those jobs in factories, not even a person who went to Senior 4 should, attend to those jobs. Because these are jobs that anyone who has never seen blackboard can do. Because they earn mostly, I think, 800 or 1,000. But you will see government telling us this factory is creating 15,000 jobs. And you're like, but what type of jobs are you creating? Are you creating these jobs for the university students or what? So then we go to the ones downtown. And it's on record, the most entrepreneur Africans did not go to school. If they went to school, they did not find jobs, and they just had to start up their shops. So these are you have angry generations that are bitter. You even have those ones that are informed. You see, when you know something, you tend to think you know it all, even if you know 10%. So they are not understanding. Each time you come and say we are raising taxes, they will not understand. They will not understand why, because they've dropped out of school. They have tried to survive. You have not listened to them. Me, I've attended most government events. The minister will come and speak to himself and leave as if he doesn't even listen to those panels. In fact, if there is a panel, the first thing they will do is to put only government officials on that panel. And once they have finished presenting, they are out of the room. Then they say, they take pictures, share on social media. I listen to the youth. I empowered. You know those words they usually use. So the youth are like, okay, let's resort to Facebook. Then you close Facebook. They're like, let's go to Twitter. Then you're like, no, you people on Twitter are just noisemakers. So when you say they are noisemakers, they will come on streets. And it's even on record that Uganda should know that even their police officers are not happy. I saw in Kenya. They better pay them well. Because if they are not happy, the Gen Z will influence them. And the Gen Z is ready to die. Those people are tired. They're like, I have failed to survive under these conditions. So dying is not the worst. I would rather die for the country. But there is something I noted that they should know. We are not violent people. We are not.
The first two rallies were not violent, actually. It's the last one that's
not violent. We are violent. When you're saying, as Jackie, I'm suffocating in Jada Coffee, my mother in the village, you don't know the pressure in the village towards Christmas. I suffered from Ibanda. I came to Kampala. It means I have failed Ibanda. I have come to Kampala. Now I come to Kampala. My village thinks I speak good English. I can be able to pass any interview. I have gone to school. They have educated me. Then I come to Kampala. I still struggle. From Kampala, some of them have left and gone to UK and US. Us who have stayed in Kampala, we are struggling. Towards Christmas, you expected to go back. The priest is waiting for you. Wants some money at the village. That drunkard that you left there also expects something. You got your mother expects you to take care of the Christmas bill. And then all of a sudden you have all these bills. And when you seated in church, you see a whole minister donating about $50,000. You're like, where do they get this money from? Then you see them saying, you sit at the back, the minister sit in front. When you ask the minister that, can we speak to you? The minister is like, I'm in a hurry. You only see them during campaigns. So what I'm trying to tell you is that when you do not listen to this generation, the world is pushing us to the wall. So we'll either break the wall or we'll break you.
Okay.
That's what I can say.
But anyway, Honorable Ssemujju,
Yes.
You've heard from Jackie. And Gen Z, or Gen Z. Kenya protests, will they stop?
Will they stop or will they stop them? Because the formal channels, I think now they have gone through the formal channels of getting the military on the street. They have shot those that they can. So they are making it difficult for them to continue. But the appetite to continue is still there. So that's what they have to deal with. You know, I have been in a school where there is a strike. It starts with the food. I remember the one we had at my former school. So the demands were actually...
Pardon?
They start with the food according to Ssemujju from the library. But the library
but even the library is itself banned. The ritual that is there will be banned. So when you have people striking, you may not know where they will end. For us, we started with electricity, that they are switching off, yet you wanted to read after preps. But when we made the headmaster, the demands, the electricity became just one of them. We now want this, we now want this, we now want food, we now want... So that's the risk that you face when you're a leader. That all the other small things that have not been part of the conversation now will come. Because this is what I have been reading in Kenya. We now want you to reconstitute the electoral body. We want constitutional reforms. MPs must not be paid more than doctors. And even when you see Ruto conceding, because after conceding to the bill, he also announced a number of what he called state measures, including abandoning renovation of State House, reducing the money available. Last evening I saw they are even demanding that the money the budget. I didn't know that Kenya has a budget for the wife of the president and maybe the vice. They said even that budget must go away. I said I didn't know. So that doesn't make it okay for Uganda. So the demand is, and as Alinda said, Alinda, when you give in, the others will also come. And I think Ruto had become a little bit comfortable after quarreling over election results.
And,
so he had
and
become,
protests.
Yeah,
and
the earlier ones.
protests.
Yeah, because you see, the earlier protests were by Raila Odinga. They have nearly sorted him out. First of all, he's an old man, but two, he wants to go and work at the African Union. So you saw when Ruto brought him here to meet Museveni, they have met a couple of other presidents. I think in Kenya, they usually find a way of accommodating opposition. So once Raila Odinga, because Ruto had said, no, we will never accommodate, we will never do the things that Kenyatta did. For us, it's going to be different. You guys go and set as opposition. That is your space, constitutional space. Then they started the protests. Then he said, okay, now we need to deal with Raila Odinga. So he dealt with him. He didn't know that you can have, in fact, most of the successful revolutions and protests, civic actions, are the ones that don't have recognized faces. If you go to Sudan, the removal of al-Bashir, eventually we are told, was a women movement. In fact, they are the ones who were killed most. In Libya, until later, when you had the former Attorney General of Gaddafi joining, initially they are ordinary people who are protesting. In Egypt, the same story. So when you are dealing with people, because even the demand, there are people who paraded themselves that they are speaking for the youth. No, they are not speaking for us. You may not even know who to speak to. You don't even know which demand to concede to. Because the earlier one that are formerly presented, which was a bill you have dealt with. So you now have other demands that are being presented by many more people. But I am happy with Kenya that young people can make government concede. The trouble with Uganda, Professor Ssemweya used to say it here a lot. Democracy does not settle for a passive citizen. The Ugandan population is different, maybe because of the circumstances that they face. I have been in protests here many times. General Munti used to say, we are the only country where leaders are protesting on behalf of the population, but the population is just, we are praying for you and clapping for you as you move. So they never join. Then you begin asking yourself whether you are protesting on their behalf or you are protesting for your own. So it's a bit difficult. Yeah,
Jacqueline here protested so much about coffee, and we are saying good luck with everything.
And nothing has changed. I was asking her before.
You're protesting because you didn't eat. So.
Yeah.
I was asking her before we entered here.
Jackie and Kabashenga.
The initial money in the budget was 35 billion. In this budget, you have 70. So I was asking, have you sorted out the earlier issues for the 70 to be released? So the population is different, but also deal with different circumstances. Uganda is a military state. Because if a country cannot allow you to address a rally, I don't think they are going to allow you on the street. They will shoot at you. They will bring all clans of soldiers. The one they brought during the Kayunga riots, we are not even speaking Uganda. They look too short. People suspected we are not even from Uganda. They were shooting everything, including journalists. And so the circumstances that we deal with in Uganda is different. And Alinda, I don't think that Museveni, first of all, Museveni is a very stubborn person. He's not one who is going to give in. Even if he will, it will be much, much later. I remember one time we had a shout out with him in Makerere. We were demanding he must, don't remember the word that they use at the university, Makerere Oi. And for 2 hours the man refused. At the end of his speech he said, okay, now I can test. But he had refused. We started shouting. He said, okay, I will shout back.
Ssemujju, which year was that?
About 20 years ago.
20 years ago.
Yes.
And I want to tell you, how old was the president when he took over?
40, okay, officially 44.
So I can challenge you, and I support NRM.
Yeah.
My family has supported the NRM. I'm the 4th generation, and I still will vote NRM. But I can tell you that if Mr. President thinks that he's the Mr. President of when he had come in power, that's not true. You know why I tell you that? The president, when he had come in power, he used to fight corruption. Like, he's fighting to finish it. Now he's, you have a grandfather. You've seen the treatment of a grandfather. The treatment of a grandfather with a grandchild is different from a father and child. So now the president we have is a grandfather who will say, okay, let me listen to you. What happened? And you're like, Mr. President, the devil is a liar. I was tempted. And then he says, okay, you've apologized. You can go back. That's the president we have. It's not the other one. So,
but on matters of power, I don't think he has changed an inch. The same way he was shooting people at the beginning is the same way he's still shooting people.
You think he's coming to Kololo to speak to you? He no longer calls you in groups to meet in State House. He's coming to Kololo, and that is something that he has done well. Calling you in Kololo, all of you. Did he used to do that?
What does he resolve? When you meet traders and you tell them nothing, you will change. I don't think you have changed.
Ssemujju would be Gen what?
It's not a millennial.
I am old now.
Okay. So before all comes in, welcome to the studio to Capital Gang, Honorable Lydia Wanyoto Mutende. Welcome.
Thank you, Oskar, and good morning to our listeners and viewers.
Welcome, Derrick, Wandera. From
Oskar.
Yes. Opondo. How do you stop these people?
The other Saturday I told you that after 26 years now in the gang, I need a casino and I go so that when the
service award,
so that when the jackies come, I'm not here. I listen from the big mango between Kapelebion from Kapelebion, and I just come once in a while. But of course, times have changed in many respects around the world, but for Uganda in particular. We have had one political organization, NRM, generally under one leader, President Yoweri Museveni, who I must say, looking at where we are coming from, or we are where, has led us well, very well, under the circumstances. No resources, completely broken down. He has led us well.
I agree.
And for that reason, many of us, I dare say 60% of the population, even the young ones, are still willing to give him the benefit of the doubt. And that's why, even when we are going through very big challenges, when it comes out, you see that he wants to actualize the solution he's giving, but you are willing to listen to him and give him time. So he has led us very, very well. Now, going forward, these 38 years, 40 years, the changes I was referring to, the demographics, the education, the democracy around the world and here, the technology, the liberalization, the privatization, all these have brought empowerment beyond the reach or curtailment of the state as we used to know it. There is very little the state can curtail using brute force. So the alternative for the leaders is actually to bend backwards, be flexible as you can. And you can see that President Museveni as an individual is very, very flexible. Unfortunately, a number of us who are around him in the leadership, because we are catapulted, I think, without adequate preparation, we tend to take our positions very seriously, and therefore we don't do the kind of things he does, particularly engaging with the people who disagree with us the way he does. Look at the ring of the leaders in government and NRM. How many of them can face people they disagree with strongly and have a discussion? You start from extreme ends and move and move and move. They tend to swat you away. You raise something and somebody swats you away. They cannot distinguish between a potential lie, a genuine complainant, and a aggrieved party. They think you don't like them because of the position they enjoy. They think you are sulking because you are not in their position. And so they are spoiling.
They fear to enter an argument.
They fear to enter an argument. Bring many of these people who have been complaining about, whether in parliament or in the executive, bring them here on the judiciary and say, come and debate with the public on the issues they are raising about your conduct. How many of them will dare come here to debate? They will either try to compromise you with money, they'll try to intimidate, they will try to blackmail. If you are not appointed, they will try to go to your appointing authority to try to get you off, and if you are making noise. And you have had them, for example, in my case, they themselves confessed. They said they went to him and they told them, no, with Opondo, they deal with him the way he is. Because the president knows that I do a good job, most likely, and he knows I'm genuine. So there's no two about it, except to concede ground and proactively engage with, from informed point of view. Many of these things people are raising because of pent-up anger, cumulative issues. So there is usually just a spark. This finance bill in Kenya is simply a spark. This Agora discourse in our Ugandan public space now about parliament is just a spark. The fact that somebody sees that the leader in parliament or the leaders in parliament, the MPs, seem not to bother. But there are many things people, if you solved, the speaker came out today and makes accountability, they will ask for something else because of cumulative issues, what Alinda has talked about. And so the leaders, particularly we who are now controlling the state, need to have proactive engagement with the flexibility. And so if we don't, how much will UPDF people shoot? How many people will the UPDF people shoot? How many will the police, and so on and so forth? You can barricade yourselves in that parliament. But if young people come and start uprooting the grills on the fence, the policeman, that gun, that magazine has 30 bullets. It can run out within 1 minute. And so the policeman will have no bullet in the magazine.
But
he will run away for his dear life.
By the time
we
they
should take
get
you
on
in our
streets,
training. That's very good information.
Yes. That magazine has 30 bullets, or the AK-47. It runs out within 1 minute.
That's a lot of information.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we must ensure.
It has a refiller belt, don't you?
Yes. It has a refill. But the point I'm making is, so we need to deal with systematically with the issues. We start with the big ones, or profile them. The things that you think are big. For example, you may think that spending in Parliament or State House spending is a big issue. It may not even be the big issue for a certain constituency. Certain constituency wants something as basic as one culvert for their local stream, for them to roll a bicycle to pass through. So if the leaders at the various levels are not keen on the afflictions of the population and solve them, or even if there is no immediate solution, explanation, persuasive explanation why certain things are not be and cannot be done. We need that. But the current posture, and I said the other day on another show, I said the leaders of NRM, if we continue speaking above the population, particularly the young population, how many, you see, when the president stated it as a good thing to say, Bazukulu. If you take a typical village setting, Musoke and Jaja,
the relationship is different.
Jaja is supposed to be somebody whose chair is lifted for him, meaning he cannot lift his own chair. Many educated people take that Jaja, calling them Bazukulu, when you seem to be having your way. is condescending. The other day I was listening to the Kenyans that somebody says, my father or my parents are saying, you have a roof on your head, you have a fridge, the fridge is full of food, I pay your school fees, or you have come out of university, you still live with me in my house, you don't have bills, so why are you complaining? Then the boy said, no, Dad, for me, I only want soccer boots. Don't tell me about the food you buy, about the fridge which is full. All I want is soccer boots. So now the Ugandan youth, somebody is saying, you say you have all the peace. But the fellow is saying, I have friends, virtual friends, who I interact with on Facebook. You have closed it. So don't tell me about the peace you're talking about. Don't tell me about the free education. Many of our children don't need free education. We who are in this studio. So when you're talking about UPE, it is good for the majority of the Ugandan children, for the UPE to work. But the children who are mobilizing on the social media are not the children who you will caress with the success of UPE. No, that's not what they want. And so, in our communication and the solutions we propose or we bring on table, we must make sure that we take care of the different segment of the people who are influencers. Today, and this is what I want to conclude with, how many church leaders, particularly our traditional church leaders, are listened to. The other day, I watched a minister of state in the Kabali, what Alinda was talking about, a minister of state donating in a village church, not even a cathedral, a village church, 300 million. Do you think that church leader in that village church is influential anymore among the millennials and the Gen Zs? When we came on the studio, I said the Arindas are Gen Zs, but there's Gen
X.
Alpha. While the 8-year-old, 12-year-old, 14-year-old are not voters, they cannot even be agents of candidates, but they influence what determines the narrative in an election. How? Their parents have given them smartphones so they can take pictures, they can download images from different parts of the world, put on their platforms, and it becomes the main discussion points. So the 8-year-old, the one of yesterday from Kenya, who was saying, you Ruto, it was a gun, said, you Ruto, Kenyans elected you to protect them. Now you are killing them. And you will not kill all of them. Okay, if you kill all of us, you will remain alone. Now, what do you think is the multiplication effect of that young girl on a Ugandan who thinks that the Ugandan state or the Kenyan state is not sensitive to what the people are complaining about, particularly governance issues? Because this child is not seeking to become an MP. She's not seeking to get a job. But she thinks that if this child is able to see that the state is unfair, how much else are the older people feeling? And so, the NRM people... I
thought you were part of NRM.
Huh? With the NRM people, I said
say
so.
NRM people.
No, I am one of the principal ideologues of the NRM, so I don't remove myself from it. But I think I am speaking from a certain vantage point. What you said, I was with the president when he came in '86. He was much younger, I was much younger. The 38 years we have lived, we have walked the journey together. I am able to see the shift, and I want to believe that the president sees this shift. Unfortunately, quite a big group of the people in the leadership of NRM and the country seem not to see. That's why there's this arrogance, show of opulence. If you ask these people who are showing opulence, what businesses do you do to have this kind of opulence, throwing it on people's face? What business do you do? Majority of them, the overwhelming majority of them, are people who are earning a salary from the public. Even if you have your own money, it is not easy for people to know that the money, the opulence you are showing, is not coming from their public purse. And we must be sensitive about that. And so we are cooked. I've written many times, I said, NRM could be looking into the hole. UPC is in, KANU is in, UNIP of Zambia is in, unless there is a radical change of direction in the way we do things in Uganda.
Okay. Derrick Wandera, maybe slightly older than Gen Z. And for you, the Derrick Wanderas, the government, the president knows how to deal with you. They will just close your station, your monitor. The other day, he even gave you another name now to use against you.
He has been giving us as many as possible.
For this year now, you are moving like a four-legged animal. Facebook still closed. Alinda did not succeed with coffee wars. So maybe the Gen Zs in Uganda are well controlled.
Well, and again, I would borrow the Honorable Ssemujju's words when he says there are two different circumstances. I was speaking on a different platform, and I tried to just strike the comparison between the two countries, and how it is easy to mobilize in the two countries. A deeply tribalistic Kenya will at all times find themselves together when it comes to issues that concern the general population. The politics will certainly divide them along tribes, but they will find a common ground to deal with issues when they cut across. But how is it easy? Because
so you're saying
one language.
When it comes to the politics, they'll find tribes.
They will find the tribes.
But now, if it is a protest against tax,
against the governance issues and stuff, they will find themselves together. And we've seen it in 2007. We saw it during the Mau Mau rebellion. Now the Mandamano. Now here we are. The protests are happening. How easy is it? Because they have a national language. The uniting factor for me, I think, is Kiswahili. It's very easy for them to communicate. It's very easy for them to speak the same language on the street. It's very easy for them to mobilize themselves. Other than Uganda, where when the Baganda go to the streets and probably are joined by the Ateso, probably it's going to be very hard for them to communicate. Why? Because they're speaking different languages. And we do not have that uniting factor of say it's very important.
I went to see about 20 young men who were arrested during the Kayunga riots. Surprisingly, they were all not Baganda. So half of them were Baganda, the rest were not Baganda. The ones that were arrested and stayed in Uzira for 2 years after the Kayunga riots. And a riot, I don't think it stops at mobilizing you to go. The rest, there is no communication.
I think people take mobilization as a one-off. It's a process, and it takes people understanding themselves. One, understanding their issue. How do you communicate to people? We know a vast majority of Ugandans who do not speak English. So if you communicate something using English, and the people who go on the streets do not use English, in most cases, are not the people who speak English, so to say, that you'll find the CEOs or people who are having jobs in SCs going to the streets. No, it's going to be the common people in Kamocha here who are going to go. So you need a uniting factor.
I think you need to understand that NRM has educated most people that the little English they speak, they will be able to process everything. So the people you're seeing on street, they do understand English. You're having a generation, and that is why he was asking the Gen Z. This generation, they are educated, but because they do not have jobs to occupy offices in ACs and that, when you see them on streets, you think they have PhDs, my friend.
Absolutely, you could be right on. You could be right on one angle, but yes, for me, I think that's why it's easy to protest in Kenya, and most of their protests have been successful. They protested in 2008 about constitutional reforms, and so they got them. Now they have protested about these taxes and the tax bill, and it has been called off, and it's a very big chip for them. But also, Kenyans are very aggressive people in just in their lives. They are aggressive. They are determined to do anything and everything that it takes to achieve what they want. When you move with a Kenyan on the street, you're going to see the determination and the aggression. For us, we are very slow, even in our movements, very sluggish. A Kenyan is very fast because they don't have time. For us, we have a lot of time. It's going to be very, very hard for us to organize something like that in Uganda.
Or maybe because we have food.
Yeah, of course we have food. Of course, it's also another factor. It's also another factor that a Kenyan who is very, very poor is poor indeed. In Uganda, when you're poor, you know that you have a garden where you're going to go and pick food. You can hustle. 2,000 shillings can feed you lunch and breakfast. It's very different in Kenya. It's very different in Kenya because the biggest part of their land is not arable like we have here. That someone will have a garden behind their house and stuff. Kenya is not like that. So when it comes to these issues, it's a do or die. That's why when you don't have a job in Kenya, it means tough. You're very disadvantaged.
Let me go to Lydia. Lydia, you've lived in Kenya as well.
About Uganda.
Pardon?
Wandera speaks about Uganda as if there has not been any effort. Protests here on more than almost 4 occasions. You are going to be met by military. I said in all its form. Even the Kenyans you have seen. After the military is on the street, they have shot about 39. They have also relented a bit.
Today I heard the government spokesman saying there are 13 who are dead.
Yeah,
there are more than that.
So there is no way you're going to meet this violence by Museveni on the street and you continue. All the tanks. In Kenya, you even need to go to court to apply to deploy military. The Kayunga rights found in Makerere was chairing a presentation by late Professor Dan Navdere. In the first 10 minutes of the protest starting, SFC was in Makerere. 10 minutes. We had to abandon vehicles and walk out of Makerere. So it's not that Ugandans cannot protest. That I don't agree. They have actually protested before, but we are under a military rule. That's why you see the reason Ruto concedes. He complains against security. His deputy president is complaining against the security response. Here there will not be any complaint. They will be butchering everybody and carrying bodies in police patrols, taking them to Murago and stealing even the bodies from Murago. So Ugandans can protest.
Honorable, I want to ask you a question. You remember the riots of 2008? How many people died in Kenya? Over 1,500. And the numbers, you see, the numbers keep. But with those numbers of people dying, you think they relented? They didn't. So it's not just about the military deploying and killing people, however, in whichever number. It comes with determination.
Some of them were killing themselves.
Lydia, how?
I will not compare Uganda to Kenya. I just want to share my own experience about Kenya so that since you all live in Uganda, you'll be able to tabulate. Just this week I was inspiring to OO here. The Archbishop was going in Kenya, was going to church, to the cathedral. Then his son asked for a lift. So when he was reaching out near the cathedral, Daddy, let me drop off here. I said, hey, now where are you going? You're not going to church? He said, the guy said, I'm joining my friends, a son of an archbishop. He went and was joining his friends in the struggle for the riots. That should tell you. The other issue that I wanted to share is that Nairobi University, where I also studied, is on the street in Nairobi, in the central business district of Kenya. But there is no lecture, whether it was on a weekend or Monday, that I attended, where a professor did not conclude a 1 hour lecture without being political. So one of the Makerere of Kenya is on Kampala Road of Nairobi. And all the professors, most of them have similar names like OO here. They will not begin, a lecture will begin with a proverb or a bite on politics of the center and conclude with so the biggest wiring of politics of the youth, of the young people, is in the center of the city. So you're talking about your Gen Z and millennials, but talk about those who are refueling those tanks of those minds. I left Nairobi University very politicized, but also intellectually open. I struggled to do work in Uganda because the way they teach you, the outlook, the books you read, the exposure you have, you cannot leave an institution in Kenya the same. And the university, the schools there have liberalized. You remember, many Kenyans were coming to school in Uganda. If you remember, 10, 15 years ago, the Ssemujju, Tanzania and Kenyan buses we are feeling coming here, St. Lawrence and whatever. Now, Kenya has much liberalized the education system. They've upped the whatever. So many Kenyans, whom we are calling Gen Zs and J whatever, are going to school in Kenya. And because I've been to those classrooms, I know what's happening in the classrooms. That's one. So it's not about, it's also what are they learning in school. For me, I begin from there. Then the other issue is that what's happening today is not new, because if you think that the riots this week, it's just maybe the bill. But Kenya has had the history of riots. You know this very well. From the history of the Mau Mau, I was in Kenya. Don't begin counting my years. In 2002, Ssemujju, you remember, I was already a member of parliament, and I was observing elections in Kenya. And I saw how Moi handed over power to Kibaki in a wheelchair. President Museveni had to negotiate a riot to enter Uhuru Park. I think, you remember. He had to stand out in his car, and they had to navigate a crowd of rioters who were throwing mud and stones at Moi when he had gone to hand over power to Kibaki. That's what he will do to Museveni. That is the Kenya that I'm talking about. And I was there in that crowd. I was not told I was there because I stayed after the observation to get the swearing in and then the post-election management of violence. 2007, I was in Nairobi. I was the head of delegation for the observer missions in Nairobi. And when we were at the Tale Center, Ruto came and jumped the table with Martha Karua. They were jumping tables looking for the Kivitu and the other people, Kivitu, people who had run. And Kivitu was not to be seen. They checked in the rooms. Where was Kivitu? Before we know what, he was at State House swearing in Kibaki at 7 p.m. We were at the Tale Center counting results. I am just telling you what I have seen, what I have lived in Kenya. So, what are we talking about? So it's not a new thing. There is a history, there is a process. What is happening in the tertiary institutions? How are they training their people? How are they preparing Kenyans? I've been there. So, the post-election violence that Wandera quoted, 2007, 2008, President Ruto was at the center. If you forget, you must know this. He was at the center of this 2007 violence and governance, because they negotiated the power for Raila Odinga to become prime minister. It was never in their constitution. So when they shared government and he became Minister of Agriculture then shortly, then after that they went and did the 2010 constitution review. If you remember, the constitution of Kenya was reviewed and redone 2010 to bring in the counties, to bring in devolution of power, if you remember that. Now, what has happened to the new constitution of 2010? There is a lot of expenditure on administration. There's what they call the county government. sharing of power, because they're saying, the state house is too small, Ikulu is too small, let's dissolve power and we share resources. So they now have 47 counties. But a governor in Kenya is a government. You are talking about the first lady of Ikulu and the first daughter having offices in Nairobi. But for the county, for the 47 county, each governor, there is an office of the first lady of the county with a budget. With a budget, with resources, with a chopper. If you want to know the cost of running a chopper, you can ask, here it is the preserve of our security agencies. In Kenya, it's part of the transport of the big people. So as you do this, there's been World Bank loans and other big loans to the state, which now have run out of management, and government has been told, show us that you can manage your domestic resources so that we can give you more loans. The trouble that sparked off this, that brought back the usual history of reactions, is taxing so that they can be able to expand the revenue collection and show World Bank and other international agencies that, look, we've been able to put on table domestic revenue, please give us money to run the state. So this is what has happened. But while this is happening, what has caused annoyance is the opulence of the leaders. And it is bordering impunity. It is bordering impunity. You know, you go to a function, you've taxed somebody bread, and people have said, Oskar, for me, the first time I came to Kampala, you may think because I went to Gaza High School, I'm a born city. No, I come from a village called Ssemweya in Imbale. My neighbor is an uncle to Ssemujju. These are the Kakungulu families that came to my home area, and then they sold to us land in the Magiso.
Lydia, first pause
let
there.
me finish.
No. We need to stop for a break. And after the break, I'll come straight back to you. It's like you're speaking the same language as OO, except you are saying things nicer. And Jacqueline Alinda.
The Capital Gang on Capital FM with Uganda Martyrs University in
Welcome back from the break. This is the Capital Gang. Sad news. This is a death announcement. The family of the late Mzee Yokana Bakebwa regrets to announce the untimely passing of George Besigye Bakebwa, which occurred on the 27th of June 2024 in Bara Hospital. The final service and burial will take place on Sunday at 2 p.m. in Bigaga, Kambuga, Kanungu district. Relatives, friends, and well-wishers are informed. Lydia, I interrupted you to go for the break. I should thank Star Cafe.
Capital FM's Capital Gang in association with Uganda Martyrs University in Kosi, making a difference.
That again, if you want to compare Kenya to Uganda, you'll have issues, because like what I'm sharing, the first time I came to Kampala is when I was going to S1. I don't know, Ssemujju came in when he was joining university. Yeah. Me, when I was going to senior one, to Gaza High School. But from Ssemweya, I'd studied in Fairway Primary School. I came with my father, and he took me to my first cousin's home in Makerere, who now became my guardians going forward, because I used to go to school using Makerere University bus through my guardians. But in that home, yeah, they had buses taking to children of lecturers. But in that, but in Kenya, you cannot leave Kakamega and go to Nairobi to stay with the relative one, Ssemujju. No, you must stay a few days and go and hustle, because the cost of living is so tight. Those people do not cook every day. They cook every Sunday and pack foodstuffs in the fridge because of energy costs. So every day you eat one pound of posho and some vegetable. Every day you remove from the fridge, warm and eat. And then they do not drive vehicles like these OOs do. People who have vehicles park them. They only drive end of month, and that's when they go for an outing for Nyama Choma. So the cost of living in Kenya is so calculated, which is not the case in Uganda. Food in Uganda, food in 2017, I was again in Kenya. Do you know that the elections are going to be lost because of the increase the cost of ugali. You remember, or you're informed. They were going to lose an election because the price of posho had gone up. Does that happen in Uganda? So Kenya is a different story, a different culture, and anything can spark off a riot. So
Archbishop's son that you mentioned was joining the Friends because he doesn't have food.
No, I'm just giving a narrative of many things
Our generation.
that are built up to something. It's not about your generation. Even Mama was a generation. 2007 was a generation. 2017 was about to price of ugali. So anything. I'm also talking about the critical mass in Kenya. I talked about the education systems. I've studied in Uganda, for your information, but I've also studied in Kenya. And I've seen a difference in what happens in the lecture rooms. So it's about the conscious awareness, the mass mobilization, the issues on table, the critical mass. And if you're not careful, but also the deployment of people. Because there were huge changes. That's one I can tell you. When Ruto took over power, even given their constitution, these days the appointment of people is more... it is open. The changes are aligned to particular communities, aligned to particular power centers of the communities, and that only can trigger displeasure, can trigger. So mobilization is constant, but anything small can raise what you are seeing today. Whether this has silenced the bill and it will end, I do not think. They can only stop. It is going to inform, as I conclude, Oskar, what has happened on this finance bill is just a trigger. I have a strong feeling, and let's watch the space, it might also inform the 2027 general elections. It has not ended here. It will inform, in a way it will inform. So there has to be very aggressive, intentional, and deliberate efforts to reorganize, re-engage, and see how they will pull off 2027, and also the next bill. I mean, the next budget cycle is already affected by what we are seeing now. And finally, forgive me for speaking a lot, why Kenya is also a bit different from Uganda is that it is our regional hub, even for the international community. The region's international community is housed in Nairobi. So there's a lot of shuttle diplomacy that happens on anything that may not happen in other states, including Uganda. Because even the headquarters, some of the regional headquarters of the UN are within the Nairobi. I don't know whether you pick my point here. There's a lot of influence from the international community because Nairobi is our regional hub.
Thank you, Lydia. Coming back to you, Jackie, to start the next one. Gen Z Jackie Alinda of Jada Coffee. So, President again has repeated in recent times, pardon, Ofwono? You wanted to protest that she's not of Jada Coffee?
You know, Jackie acquired a new status recently. I want to congratulate her.
We did. We did on the show, yes.
She was here when I wasn't here.
Yeah.
And I thought we
did.
Which one is that? You got married or something?
Yes.
Hey, okay. To who? To some Gen Z?
Mr. Campera.
Hey.
So congratulations, Jackie.
But now, how can you fail not to invite Capital Gang?
So, Jacqueline, the president has repeatedly...
contribution from Capital Gang. It never said
Manage the first anniversary. We shall do it.
The president has variously talked about corruption in recent times, and he says he's going to be very tough. But other people are also saying different things. All these contradictions. So what's the future on the fight against corruption?
I think...
You've already called him a soft judge.
No, he's not a soft judge. He's a judge. He's our judge. He calls us Bazukuru. We call him judge. And if you're a judge, if I do something wrong, you have to forgive me. You're not like my father, like to beat me up. But let me tell you something that the president has to accept that. They said 45 million. Wasn't that what they said? Ugandans?
45.9.
I would really love to look at that report so that I know the Gen Z and millennials, the population, at least the percentage we cover. Why?
We'll discuss it next week.
We'll tell us.
Still reading in
why
detail.
Is that? You see, before, likes of they used to blame them that they don't read. Now, our generation, we don't listen. We're not going to sit there and read a whole pamphlet. You must summarize it. And how we process it, it's our way. So how you communicate to us matters. For example, for us, we are a bit, I wouldn't love to say short-tempered or something, impatient. that if you say Oskar stole money, for us we don't
That's
care
a
about
wrong
it.
example.
No, it's an example. Okay, let me say, if you say Jackie,
Okay.
Jackie stole money, okay? Now, this generation does not want you to say, we are going to go through the system, then we give you bodyguards, then we see you in court. For us, we see corruption. This generation wants you to say, first of all, step down, as the investigation is. Number two, we are withdrawing our vehicles or whatever service. So that is our generation. So when you say that we are fighting corruption, and then we see the corrupt people smiling at us in court, they protect them. Even when I'm driving my small car, there is a convoy, you say, get out of the way, we have a corrupt man rushing. So I miss my business meeting because there is a corrupt man with a convoy of 4 cars. And then after that, the cabinet comes and you reappoint this person after 2 years. And then you want this generation to understand you. We are not patient people. That is one. Number two, if you're to fight corruption, is that I think our generation equally, thanks to NRM, that it has brought up some people to represent us. Now, this is a question that goes back to us, to our generation. We have people that have represented us. The same thing I tell feminists, that we have had women in power. We have had our generation in power, but they are equally corrupt. So what do we do? It means we have to come out and reset. So if the president is fighting corruption and the government is fighting corruption, I can tell you that our generation is not ready for speeches. It's not ready to listen to. We are handling that matter. Because we will ask you so many matters that you have not handled. We will ask you, we saw the Mabati saga. How did you handle? You have not come back to tell us how you handled it. Now we have another saga in Parliament, and you're telling us you're handling. You have not come out to tell us that you're handling. We have even other projects that are affecting us. You're saying you're handling coffee. As we are in coffee, we know you're not handling. We are involved. You're not going to tell us that you're handling. So you will find yourself that, I know always said NRM has achievements. I agree. And someone even here said, people like Jackie who complain about poor state of country in various sectors, but still support Museveni are real enemies of progress. When you disagree with your father, do you go and you get another home and you start living there? Then when it has another problem, you go? No. I will stay in NRM, but I'm telling you I'm not in a cult. I will tell NRM, stand up. If someone is corrupt, let them go on the streets and suffer. And I'm saying it before that the problem we are having with our parliament is that 70% of them don't own businesses. Those who own businesses, they are surviving on their salaries. The day that they don't have those salaries, their businesses do not survive. That is why after being thrown out of parliament, they do not last. We don't even see their businesses. They start selling them. So if we could have even someone challenged us. Now see how our generation comes up. I saw them on Twitter. The comparison has started. Who is the Minister of ICT in Rwanda? Then they bring ours. You see, that's our generation. Because for it, it's not going to sit there and listen to, you see, because is powerful in his region. So we need more votes there. We need peace in that region. That is why we appointed I'm sorry to say, with a certificate. They are not going to listen to that. So our generation, if you're to handle it, you must understand its language. You must also understand that we are poor at listening. We are poor at reading. So all you have to do is sit down with our generation, apart from them coming to you and you greet them and you say, your Bazukuru, how are you? Write us letters, we are going to read them. But we must also be involved when it comes to making these policies.
In short, you don't think anything is going to happen in the fight against corruption?
What is happening, what I can say is, when you warm up your car, a child will cry as if you're leaving. But taking off is another issue. So I am seeing them, they are warming up the engine. I'm not sure whether they will take off. And those ones that have that are pilots will tell you that for a plane to take off, time matters. Once you warm it up, once you start, you must take off. If you don't take off at a particular time, you will crash. So that is what is happening with the fight in corruption.
Honorable Ssemujju.
You need to go back to speeches that Museveni has made. First, we've discussed this matter, and I said at Kololo, he classified the corruption and opened a window when he said mistake makers. By saying that, he was actually telling you that there are people who will not be punished if you listen to him.
Because they made a mistake.
And it is only him who will classify you, either you for punishment, another one not. But also the mentality, the general cycle of people who are working with Museveni. I keep telling this story of Brigadier, I don't know whether it's still a Brigadier or Stephen Kashaka, who went to see Mukunde in jail, and he said, for me, I've pleaded with the man, he has forgiven me. So you need to go and also plead. So someone who is in office corruptly, and he says he wants to fight corruption. As I said on another show, maybe he need to be the first to walk into CID and prison. 2005, you bribe MPs to change the constitution for you to stay in power. 2017, you bribe MPs to stay in power. You cheat elections, you beat people, you stay in power corruptly, and then you say you want to fight corruption. I think Museveni wants to speak about it to make it look like him is not involved. Because there is no act of corruption that Museveni has not been involved in, whether it is nepotism, whether it is state resources. So the NRM, as I said earlier, the material that was used to construct NRM was corruption. Stopping corruption means NRM has come to an end. So until, because you see, Oskar, so you were in power after bribing MPs, after changing the constitution, and then you say, now I want to fight. When you accuse MPs of laughing when they are in court, they know that the reason is they are in court is not necessarily corruption, because Museveni has been at the center of corrupting parliament himself. So they actually know that at one stage he will abandon, he will leave us. So the point I slightly agree with Alinda is that maybe we need to reset the country. The Museveni that we speak about, who was fighting after assuming power, is completely a different Museveni, vulnerable, who must stay in power after doing many things. So you quarrel with him throughout the budget process, but even when the budget is passed, how is the money used? We made proposals in the parliament because there is corruption of stealing, but there is also the official one of giving yourself money. And I don't think Museveni will go and steal money because he has given himself a lot through classified, through this and that. So when even the NRM itself, the one that Opondo speaks for, they are a party that is 100% financed by the state. So they are using state money to campaign against other smaller parties. So I am not one of those who believe that Museveni will change an inch. People who are stealing for themselves, those ones you can make a go at them because he has not authorized them to go and steal. But the ones who are stealing either elections or money to do NRM work, those ones will be mistake makers. But if you steal for yourself, you will also be angry because he has asked you to go and do work and you steal part of the money meant to do the work. Maybe for me, Oskar, I think the motivation now are two. First, the economy is not functioning. You have a lot of debts to pay. You no longer have money, and I don't think Museveni will keep raising taxes in every budget. So we are in a squeeze as a country. And also, when you set up an environment like he has set up, even to find people, you will send money to Ssemujju or to Ofwono to do work, and that work will not be done. I have a feeling it is also because of the financial squeeze that he will now want to do something. Not necessarily, but also he's speaking to the gallery, and I know that. Because after some time, we are going into an election, Oskar. Go back to the last two elections. Each time you approach an election, there will be inflation, the shilling will depreciate. All the money will now move towards buying and renting support for Mr. Museveni. So asking Museveni to fight corruption is asking him actually to step down.
Fight against corruption.
Well,
MP Ssemujju is in prison.
First of all, we must have the spirit. And that spirit, people see it from what you say.
I have Henry,
So
Dr.
for
Henry
me,
listening from London says, is now the real deal.
It is good for the president and majority of leaders to speak out publicly against corruption and corrupt tendencies. That's a good starting point. Whether they leave it or not, for me, that's good. And therefore, it is uplifting when the president goes to no other forum but Parliament and faces members of Parliament and he says, I now have evidence that some of you are corrupt and you have woven a network of corruption backwards into the public service. And 2-3 days down the road, and you remember he asked members of Parliament when he made that categorization of mischief makers and so on and so forth, and they say the MPs said, no, we want blood. I think at the time the members of Parliament said they want to see blood, they didn't anticipate that some of them are going to be immediate casualties. Now, for me, that's good that you are speaking to members of Parliament, the institution of Parliament, and they're saying you are corrupt. For me, that's good. Now, is he walking the talk? Yes, he's walking the talk, and we can see from not just that talk, but also pieces of legislation, institutions, and actual operational issues where he's tackling now. Does he do this successfully alone? Certainly not. He requires, once we have established the rule of law, it requires that the entire infrastructure of government should be moving towards the same direction on tackling the corrupt. And for me, so far, so good to that extent. Do we expect the president to just throw people in jail? Our constitution does not say so, does not give him even the power. However, where I have issues with the president, and which I have stated so publicly, including in my writing, and which Alinda here has repeated, there are cases where the president has 100% authority. He's not fettered at all. And those are his political appointees. I can accept a member of Parliament who is taken to court and is granted bail, and because of the legalese, eventually the courts release them and then even acquits them, that's okay. But where the president has 100% authority like his ministers, and there is evidence, and I've said this, how does it look? And I think that's why people square. They say, is he actually serious? Where the executive has taken ministers to court, because it's the executive which takes many culprits to court, particularly criminal cases, and you have a minister sitting with you in cabinet every week. You have a minister together with you launching the population result, the census result. To the ordinary mind, especially if you have not explained why you have this one, who's battling and is inviting you to launch the census result. The ordinary, yes, the ordinary Ugandan will not appreciate all these intricacies, and I think for me, there I say the president could do better and ought to do better to persuade the public that he is doing the right thing, or he means business. Now, the rest of us, the infrastructure of NRM, the NRM stands on constructive, open criticism. When all these things is, and I've said again on another show, the NRM constitution provides for ethics commission. It would have helped us, NRM, to deal with some of the issues. And because we have been in competition, NRM kind of abandoned background checks. I have said on this show and many others, if you look at that parliament, for example, we are now going for elections. You are going to see many people from local governments, civil servants, and even central government, who are on interdiction for impropriety. You will see them running to come for the NRM primaries. And once, no, they are not given. Once they have found they have earned the ticket of the NRM through the primaries, because there is a feeling that once you earn the ticket of NRM in an election, particularly for members of parliament, you have won yourself a court, a protection. You have seen these fellows who are running around with the PLU. Is it called Pilau or PLU? Are running around. And the president said, when he was in Rwanda, he said, you Jerry Muhozi, some of these people are running around with you are self-schemers. He did not give the details. But I think he meant that some of, and if you look at them, the number of them, those of us who are in the media and we follow these things, if you look at a number of them, there are people who have impropriety. And I think falsely believe that by being closer probably to General Muhozi, the first son, CDM officer now, and CDF, they will enjoy protection. I am happy that General Muhozi, you remember, I don't know whether it was accurate, but somebody said that when Mawanda was in the police in the Kawempe, in Atete, he said, can you allow me to speak to General Muhozi? I don't know whether it's accurate, but it wouldn't be far-fetched knowing how leading politicians behave. Once they're in those troubles, they will try to name drop. You have had in this one of parliament a number of members of parliament name dropping the president. They say, you see, the president has heard your cries. He will tamper the process. Oblivious.
That was only one person who said that. She was only one person.
No. But you see, that one person represents us, represents an institution of government, represents the appropriation platform of government. What you see, it means that this person was indirectly actually saying to the Ugandans and to the world that the president is going to influence the judicial process outside the prescribed method of the president dealing with judicial matters. You see, that's not a good way to do it. So, for me, I think the president means business, but the president needs our support in all ways. We cannot expect that the president just by his even.
We support exactly as the president need. I want
with the population and the institutions and the institutions of government, parliament, judiciary.
Oh, you mean parliament? I thought you meant general population.
No, and I'm talking about even the general population. For example, if somebody is now in prison or is facing prostitution, and you, the people of Ivanda, now
in Isinjiro, actually.
We say we the people of Isinjiro, Mr. President, we have been giving you votes. Please intercede for us. Our member of parliament is like this. I saw born again pastors of Igara. Most likely they are now seeking appointment. Yes, the president cannot refuse to meet them, but I expect that when he meets them, should he meet them, he will say, no, my pastor is from Igara. Leave that matter because it is before the court of law.
Okay.
And we do believe in the due process of our judicial system. That's what we expect. But we should not expect that the president alone. I mean, we are told Jesus is the all-powerful. How long has the Bible and Christianity been here? People still fornicate. Yes, people still fornicate. Now, to expect that the president can have power, yes, to expect that the president can have can be more powerful than the teaching of religion, I think
maybe some detail is not so necessary.
Yeah, we would be putting too much
on a morning show.
But also, supposing the president is compromised, that's why we must all be on the watch out and put our effort so that even if the president was to be compromised, nobody should take no corrupt person should take solace that they will be protected by the president. The rest of Ugandans should be able to tackle them and knock them down, in spite of the fact that the president is protecting them. I mean, the same thing that is happening in Kenya today. Mr. Ruto has now sadly discovered that winning an election being parted by Joe
And
Biden
staying
and
in
sitting
the
on
power.
Joe Biden's chair cannot protect you from the anger, the wrath
From
of
your
your,
youth.
of your citizens. So they can invoke the name of the president. However, Ugandans should not allow them a safe space there, that because you have invoked the name of the president, you will be safe behind him. No, we should tackle them. Yes.
Lydia, on corruption and the contradictions. Go on.
I was on another talk show, and my issue is that I think we've talked enough about the evils of what we call corruption, and where I stand, corruption is clearly defined in our statutory books and our laws, so we don't need to redefine it. It is simply taking what is not yours and taking advantage of your position in society, and then you divert what is not meant for yours. And the other time I gave an example, and then you said God forbid, and I was saying that if something is meant for Ssemujju, and then finally it ends up with the Oskar, and then you said I shouldn't use this example. Now today you're asking me again. I have not changed the position on that. And if we take that, and we do not need to spread, of course corruption takes many forms, but we can only deal with one form until send a strong message. The issue of taxpayers' money, if we just handled that alone, and taxpayers' money is not handled by everybody. It is handled by two sets of people, the accounting officers and the influencers. And I defined who an influencer is. If you looked for Ssemujju's signature on taxpayers' money, you may never find it. But because he's a member of parliament or is in an advantage position, he can influence and his other colleagues. But there's this one who signs, is called an accounting officer, and they are known. At national, there is somebody called the permanent secretary. There is the chief administrative officer or the clerk. The clerk is an accounting officer of the chief administrative officer or the sub-county chief. They are known. Where money is, they say wired, the money moves on wire. Where the money is wired. If we just focus on that and do budget tracking, that will solve a very big problem of money reaching where it's supposed to go, especially to service delivery. So, and if we do that, it means we build strong systems which track, because then we do the preventive. Oskar, the noise you are hearing on radios, including you, is because we have now attached what we are talking about to people's names. Oh, so and so is in prison, he's my cousin, he's my relative, we went to school together, he's my friend. But the moment you put systems in place, you touch, it hits you, you don't go there. So we do the preventive. Ultimately, this money will go where it's supposed to reach. Then we will have no problems with family members, with people who sit in the front of the faith-based institutions. This one was paying 300 million at a church. Those things will not happen unless you are sold these cows. But money, you don't doubt that money has come through taxpayers' money. And for me, I think that that's the way to go. Then you will be able to protect even the Ssemujjus of Uganda. Ssemujju is suffering, by the way, because now than ever before, the matter is touching about people that he has shared a plate of food with, that he has shared prayers with, a desk at school with.
On Twitter now, there's a message here.
But we should be able to build systems that do the preventive.
There's Nelson.
That do the preventive.
Lydia.
No, he's not alone, even us.
Lydia, there's
we
Nelson.
have family members.
Listen, Nelson from Kazo district says, thanks for the show, but Ssemujju has no moral authority to talk about corruption because he seriously defends people like Mpuga and the speaker.
No, they didn't understand Ssemujju. For Ssemujju, let me speak for you. I have an example, and I think I can draw the parallels. When my late husband was contesting for Mbale municipality then, he fought over primaries, he didn't get, and I was a commissioner for NRM Electoral Commission. Then he lost primaries. So he went to become an independent. Now there are party members who are telling me I should go to the podium and campaign Dr. Mutende. And I said, how can I? When I finished the campaign, Whose home do I go to in the evening? I told them, no, I will not, because this is a serious conflict of interest. Let me pull out of that thing. When Ssemujju says he will not, and I hope Ssemujju, I'm speaking what you are saying. When you say that you are not going to act against Impuga because you have a conflict of interest there, it does not mean that you are protecting Impuga for his omissions. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that's where I agree. But if you're doing something beyond that, then that's a problem. But because I'm drawing what the experience I went through to what you are going through. You are not stopping a campaign against corruption or culprits or suspects, but you are saying you will not be the first one to sign because you and Impuga share this desk at school and your history, and you wish him well, but you are not protecting him. Am I right on that?
Even have the capacity.
No, but am I right on that?
Yeah.
So that's as far as I can speak for.
Who can't sign against Impuga because they certain massacre says together 20 years ago. Once President Museveni to jail Kashaka or others who actually protected his
who died
life.
with him in the bush.
You see the difference? I am not caught. I am not the one responsible for trying him. So the process can go on. I am not stopping the process. But when you are in charge of the process,
so we must explain that.
You have an
and
extra
it's a
responsibility.
As a member of parliament, you are in charge of the process of fighting corruption and abuse.
In our rules, in fact, if you look at
you declare your conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest, you stay away. That's what the rules say.
No, even for President Museveni, let me give an example. You know that for every time Museveni is going to be a presidential candidate in SEC, where I sit, and we are discussing, because we are the ones who present candidates to the national conference and to NEG, we tell him to leave. So he leaves the room and goes behind there. Then we discuss him and other candidates. Then when we are done with the presidential candidates, even for the office of the speaker and the ones we appoint as SEC or nominate to the organs of the party, they get out because they are conflicted. When we finish their debate, then they come back. But they do not stop the process because they are members of that organ. I don't know whether I'm being understood, but that's the reason.
It's interesting.
So for me,
Derrick, thank you, Lydia.
So for me, on issues of corruption, we are better off doing the preventive, because I do not think we even have capacity to recover what has been stolen. In fact, we are going to spend more money chasing. How much is these institutions budgeting? How much are you paying them to chase corruption?
Thank you.
We should do the preventive, because how much is being recovered back to the national coffers?
Let's put in Derrick for and then change topics. There's a video that's been going around of a guy saying, bear with all this corruption, because President Museveni has got to find money to also give you money because you beg a lot. I don't know if you've seen it.
Yeah,
you take some at home. You still take some at home.
I have seen the video, and that's the kind of mindset that we Ugandans have grown to appreciate. Those that are fighting corruption are corrupt themselves. I can give you an example.
Some, I think it's better you use some.
I think all of them. Let me give you an example. These people who have been arrested, the MPs, one, most likely they are going to bribe themselves out of that case. Most likely. The people who are investigating them are going to be bribed to get off that case. In fact, when they went to one of the MP's homes, I hear what the MP left there is not what they declared to have found. So they also made their own cut from there. And the chain keeps moving in circles. President Museveni is going to be very specific on who should be called out on corruption issues. We have seen and heard him saying, that is my daughter or that's my son, when the public is calling them out on corruption issues. So is there a will to fight corruption? No, there is no will. When you are arrested as a minister because you are involved in a corruption scandal, just know you're in the very wrong books of President Museveni. Otherwise, if they were, no one would ever touch you. You would have never seen prison. And that's the kind of system that we have in the country. I feel as a citizenry, the power is now in our hands. That those that wield power, those that hold offices that are supposed to call out culprits of corruption have failed, then let the public do the needful. The other day, I have been hearing ministers saying we should go and do a corruption exhibition on Twitter. A minister who superintends, issues of corruption or institutions of corruption is now saying, no, these institutions are not actually going to help me. Let us go and do an exhibition. But you're going to do an exhibition, you are also being investigated yourself. So you just see a broken society. Lord of the Flies is one of the books that I read in my heydays when I was still reading so many books by William Golding. He stipulates well that man is inherently evil. And yes, we are. How do we help ourselves out of this kind of conundrum? We need to give power to the people who actually own it. That a minister is going to be found culpable in a corruption scandal, and you will not allow him to go back to his home to sleep. You will put placards all over. You will call him. I've seen a very good innovation on Twitter, where they have put there the number of the corrupt officer. Call him, insult him. Send him a message, insulting him. Whatever. Send him a Twitter, insult him. You get? Such that even when the
cyber harassment, cyber harassment.
No, do you know? So cyber harassment is more dangerous than corruption. You know, we have been left to no choice but do mob justice on Twitter.
When Ssemujju was still energetic, he used to recommend those things.
Yes,
that chase them off the front row.
Even now he still does. Only disappointed me last time when he supported Honorable Mpuga. But what I'm saying is
he didn't support him.
He
didn't sign.
He said he's not going to sign. Is you his friend? We want numbers. Now if you pull out yourself and then we don't make the numbers. So the citizens have been left with no choice but to begin lynching and mob justice to some of those culpable leaders.
Yes. Chizito says this is looting. Stop sugarcoating. Stop using the term corruption. Let's have Jacqueline conclude this topic, and then I'll go to OO to start the next one.
When you asked me to come, I was supposed to represent the young generation, and that is the millennials and Gen Z. Now, tomorrow is Sunday, and there is a verse I want you to read. It says, when I was a child, I spoke like a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. So this generation here, 1 Corinthians 13:11, when you were a child, you acted like a child. So when we were children, we didn't process these NRM things because you were constructing roads for us. You could tell us, even the campaigns have changed. You're not going to come back and tell us roads when we see them. We now want better things. But there are potholes, so we have totally different things to ask for. Now, when you see, you called it PERAU, PRU, by General Mhozi Kainerugaba. I happen to be a friend. The Mhozi I know is not a corrupt man. And I can assure you that
just like
no. Listen to this statement. That's why I told you millennials and Gen Z do not listen to finish. I have not finished my statement. They have already interpreted.
Those are very honest.
So,
but what
the
can-
general
what is-
Mhozi Kenya
what would you
But
describe
those
as
are your
corruption?
arguments
Hold on.
who are impatient.
hold on. Yes, that's why I'm saying we are impatient. So, the
Who are
general I
impatient?
know will fight corruption even if you sacrificed your soul. He doesn't care. And the only advantage they have is that for him, he does not come out to speak and say, I will deal with you. I can assure you, or you watch this space. Whoever is coming out to speak on his behalf.
Jacqueline,
It
we
is
have
different.
recorded you here.
Yes, you have recorded me. It is different. So for PLU, yes, it has. We've seen Mawanda and even the church. You are talking about God. We saw a whole. Is it an archbishop or bishop?
He's a pastor.
A pastor. No, they call them bishops in there, whatever.
He's
Who's
a
going to
pastor.
observe fasting? We have seen the likes of Frag Gashumba coming out and also saying that PLU is not fighting corruption, but yet he's a member. We have seen Honorable Kabanda speaking as the Secretary General that is supporting Mawanda and doubting the system. Now, I can tell you, unless General Mhozi comes out and says so, we cannot count on that. But this is what I can tell you. This is what I can tell you. Let's watch this space. What I know about General doesn't act like the president. I can tell you that within 2 months, we will see the results of that. As I conclude...
Which
And I
2
can-
months? Beginning? When are you counting?
you start
When are you
counting.
beginning to
You
count?
start counting.
Are you the new secretary
and-
general?
No, you start
And
counting.
that-
I've spoken
That-
this from
that-
a
that-
friend to...
Jacqueline,
Jackie.
I've said we have recorded.
Yes, you
You
record.
are just a friend. Now,
Listen to
Jackie,
this.
maybe
Jackie, do you know?
Just like
you
Ssemujju
define
was
the
talking to
friend.
Mboga.
Jackie, do you know that
So-
Hold on.
being in army
Yes,
uniform
Ssemujju.
and campaigning
First
and
pause
meddling in
and
politics
we'll get
means
you back at them.
means
You
it's
change
corruption.
topics.
Do you know that
So,
being in army uniform
Derrick.
and campaigning?
I'll leave that. Today we shall
that
talk
is
about
corruption.
another.
That is corruption.
But let me
as
tell
well.
you,
Derrick and Jacqueline. So, this you will come back to the end. I want to, because we are left with very little time. So you stayed up, Opondo, you stayed up to watch another judge campaigning in a presidential debate, and you left the debate with as agreed, as a lot of Americans agreed, that maybe Joe Biden did not do well.
No, yes, I watched the first presidential debate between President Joe Biden and Donald Trump, and I think if you're superficial, maybe you can say Joe Biden didn't win or what, but I think Joe Biden has been stuttering for the last 3 years. Yeah, old men. And for me, I wouldn't take it out on them. That's expected. So I don't think that the Americans are going to decide this election on that debate or the debate. I think America, like us here now, is a very polarized society. I don't think, as in the American language, they say the debate won't move a needle. And so, but I think the partisanship in the media, in America, the media takes a political position, even election position. So it's a good section of the American media is hammering Joe Biden for stuttering, for stumbling. But I don't think
Even CNN, that is democratic leaning.
Yeah. But what I'm saying, yes, they are disappointed. But I don't think the election will be decided on that debate. On that debate, the same as the UK election. I think the positions are kind of clear. So for me, I wasn't disappointed because Joe Biden has been stuttering for the last
so many years.
I mean, it is like asking President Museveni today and you say that he will not repeat himself. First of all, that's his style, that's his mannerism, to repeat for emphasis 1 point, maybe 3, 4, 5 times. And so for me,
there's a time he did more sit-ups than Ssemujju.
Yes. And so if you ask me, just like here, you can see the Alindas and the Ofwonos. Even when we have many of these things, we are still saying Yoweri Museveni and NRM. Ugandans are better off in that pair of hands. Because, as you people say, perhaps the devil you know, the safer you are with it. And so the performance of the debate for me, it wasn't very surprising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Derrick? Derrick? 2 minutes.
Leadership in across the world is in serious test right now, especially when you know that my age and Jackie's are now coming of age and with all the energy. I think we are going to see more stuttering presidents, especially the ones that lead us here in Uganda, because of pressure. I feel the demeanor of Joe Biden, President Joe Biden, is that has been put under pressure. He has been struggling with a lot over time and over these years, not just mentally but physically as well. So one would want to ask the question: Does age really matter now for one to become, especially an office bearer of such an office? Probably yes. I know that many people have always thought that age is experience, and then it can give us good leadership. We are seeing that Joe Biden, who has voted for almost well, I wouldn't say free and square, but he was voted and supported well. Many are questioning him. Many are questioning his leadership styles and stuff. What does that tell? That you need someone who has fresh minds, fresh brains, and
some energy.
And energy, yes. You come from you come from Trump, who is energetic, is so open and tough, and then you bring for us Joe Biden,
let's
who
go
is
to Ssemujju here.
Late evening of his life.
He's
Probably
3 years older than Trump. Ssemujju?
You see, in the last campaign, I told people in the constituency that they should never compare European and Americans to Uganda. I used an aircraft. When an aircraft is about to take off, that's when the pilots are busy. And that's where most of the African countries are. But in the air, even the pilot can leave the cockpit to come and talk to you. So that's where the Americans are. Whether they have a president or not, their country can continue moving. Because otherwise, how can these two old men be competing, and you, the Alindas who are saying you want to take things in your hands, are watching and cheering? Sometimes, by the way, I get disappointed with young people. In Uganda, Oskar, the last census says 50% are under 17. But you will find them cheering Museveni. They will be the one voting Moses Ali. So young people, I mean, maybe I should also continue studying them. So they speak a lot but do nothing.
Someone on Twitter had already said that Ssemujju hasn't spoken yet about Moses Ali. So.
I am
now you have done it.
I am sympathetic, but really, so Joe Biden is closer now, moving there. The troubles that come with age, the way you saw Moses Ali, former general in the military, very energetic person. So, because you see, Joe Biden just couldn't even speak. I think the body just stopped. So he was there, lost. And that is a guy seeking to run a superpower. Yeah. So but of course the next 4 years are going to be very difficult when he's 85 plus.
Jackie?
There's autopiloting.
I said in America, you can afford.
Yeah.
In Uganda, you cannot afford. And that's why
Jackie,
Alinda, at the beginning of her submission,
I watched.
She spoke about Museveni.
I was shocked when the
Museveni of 44, and then the Museveni now official. I use the word official because Museveni says he doesn't know when he was born. Official of 80. He has said so. In fact, he said even the
Jacqueline?
birthday,
Yeah.
the
The
date
speech.
was selected by his children. He has said that.
The fact remains that Honorable
Didn't
Ssemujju,
he
we
say
are not
that?
ready to lead. We are learning. If we rush to Parliament, we'll do what you people are doing. Some of the most members of Parliament came from journalism, and then they thought journalism is the same as leadership. So we see the mistakes they are making. So then we have also comedians. So Honorable Ssemujju, we are learning. We are learning. You know, once we get there, we shall lead. So, Oskar.
Yeah. Go on.
I wanted to say this before I go, because if I don't say it, I think I will not sleep at night. I have heard that speech of where the looters, that's what you call them, they protect themselves and they are protected by people saying they create jobs. I can tell you most politicians' businesses do not pay salaries. Some of them do not pay NSSF, do not pay taxes. Even like he's saying. Number two is that the millennials and the Gen X, these are the people that have decided to use different tools of social media. We are no longer going to war. That is why they can hack government system. I was told in Kenya someone hacked and got President Ruto's number. You can imagine. That is, and the government is failing to understand that they exposed us to social media thinking we are going to go there, share our nudes, share what and what and what. Now it has changed that we are also involved. They will hack your phones. You don't want to show us the budget, we'll access them. While you're still struggling to open your email accounts and opening Excel, how to use it, they will do it. So what is our way forward here? If you want to work with these generations and prove to them that you're working, you must change things. NRM in 1986 cannot be the same in
Thank you, Jacqueline. Lydia, conclude. You see, the thing I like about Jacqueline here, you ask her different question and she gives you her own answer. These are
She gives you Gen Z answers.
Yes. So did you, concluding the show, did you watch the speech?
I watched the speech, but I think in the beginning, Biden said struggling. He actually looked like he had gotten lost. But towards the end, was all found his breath and began explaining. Make no mistake, Trump is a bully and he has not stopped. I think he's even up the game. So if you go to with him on a talk show anywhere, he's a wounded man. He's a bully by character, by strategy, and also by confidence. He can only be confident speaking when he's bullying someone. So, but it's interesting to know that America can only post 70 years candidates, so it's a contradiction. It's like they don't have candidates. But let's wait and see. I think America is also self-driven governance from over 200 years of democracy and struggling. I mean, for them systems work. I think for them systems work.
For us here, do we have
the
candidates?
White House has the systems and lobbies. Uganda, we are young democracy. There is no doubt about it. I don't even know whether we have started. Okay. And I just want to make a comment about Jack. I think to call President Museveni Mose is, yes, now it's both age and respect, but it does not mean literally that he should behave like the traditional little grandfather in your village. That is very detrimental to the state, because the state must run as rules and as governed, and the law of the land exists. So yes, your grandfather, but you have to put aside the respect and the title that it holds, and you rule the country using the. That's why I do not agree with the definition of the traditional definition of.
Thank you, Lydia.
Of corruption. Corruption is corruption, yes, as by law, and it must be.
Thank you, Lydia. Thank you, gangsters of the day. Jacqueline, Alinda of Jada Coffee, Honorable Ssemujju, Derrick Wandera of that newspaper. The president gave it another name recently. Ofwono, Opondo, ED, the Media Center, and Honorable Lydia Wanyoto. Thank you all for listening to Gang. Star Cafe, thank you for powering the Capital Gang. I am Oskar Ssemweya Musoke, and I shall see you next